This is Algebra 1, Lesson 5.4, and we're going to talk about standard form. So you've learned point slope and slope intercept, and now this is the third one, standard form. In one of the exercises in your homework, you're going to use the standard form to model different amounts of bird seed that you can buy. So this is that's why you got a bird here. So the standard form here, you can see it has 8x minus 4y in purple up here equals 20. And so in the standard form, the formula is ax plus by equals c. In this case, it's here's the x, here's the y, and neither one of these, they both cannot be 0. So that's one factor or one rule with the standard form. Ignore the rest of this standard form to slope intercept. This is just showing you the standard form is with the x and y on one side of the equal sign and a number then on the right side. And so here's what I said before. Ax plus by equals c. A has to be greater than 0, at least the a. And you cannot use fractions in a standard form. And just to identify all the pieces of this, the coefficient, which is the number before a variable, and that's a variable. The operator is plus, minus sign. And constants are just plain old numbers. That's a 7 and that's the 5. So this is what makes up the standard form. Again, the same graphic. Numerical coefficient is here. The constant is 6. The expression is 12 here. This makes up an expression. This makes up an expression. This is also, the two purple ones are constants, and this whole thing makes up an equation. What did he say?
He said food.
So in standard form, the variable terms are on the left side and the constant term is on the right side of the equation. So the plain number by itself is the constant term, and the variable terms with the x and the y are on the left side. So write y equals 2 or 5x minus 3 in standard form. So you remember that this, you'll recognize this as the slope intercept form. Y is on the left side equals 2 or 5x minus 3. We want to rewrite this into standard form using what it might say, the directions might say, using integer coefficients. So this is integers. They can be any negative number. It can include 0. It can include positive 1, 2, 3. Also, you refer to it as the counting numbers, the negatives of counting numbers, and 0. So that's what integer coefficients can be, the number before the x and the y. So in this example, it says write in standard form with integer coefficients. This was our original slope-interslope equation. And we want to get rid of the fraction, so we multiply both sides by the denominator, which is 5 here. So we'd have 5 times, and then the same part that we had up here, and then we do the same on this side right here. Now we can distribute out, we can multiply this out, because this would be, we'd have left over, we'd have 5y equals 10 over 5x minus 15. And just as a reminder that this right here is actually would be 5 over 1. So we're going to end up with 10, and the 1 here would be 5, and then 5 times 3 is going to be our negative 15 there. We simplify this, so 5 goes into 2x. So into x, we end up with 2x minus 15, and we got our x and our y. We got our y over here at the moment, and our 2x minus 15. We subtract 2x from both sides so that we get the x and the y on the left side and just the number over here on the right side. So to convert to standard form with integer coefficients, it's always going to say here integer coefficients so that you know that it can be positive or negative or 0. Our original formula is y equals negative x plus 15. So basically looking at this, you know you got to get the y and the x on the same side and just a number on the right side. So what we do is we add x to both sides right here. That will cancel out the negative x here, just leave a 5 right there, and we add the x back over here, and we end up with x plus y equals 5, and that is now in standard form. Let's look at another example. Remember, woe is write original equation out first. That's y equals negative 1 over 2x plus 7. First thing we want to do is multiply both sides by 2 so that we can clear out the fractions. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Multiply both sides by 2, we'll end up with 2 times y is 2y. We multiply the 2 over here, and we're going to end up with 2 over 2, and that's just going to, that just equals 1. We can drop that, and we end up with negative x, and the 2 times 7 here is going to be 14. And so then we add x to both sides to get rid of it on this side, and we end up with x plus 2y equals 14. Here's another one. We have y equals 2 over 3x plus 4. That's our original equation. We clear the fraction by multiplying both sides by 3. I quickly wrote out, and we multiply both sides by 3. We end up with we're going to end up with 6 over 3, which comes out to be 2. So then we have 2x plus 12 on this side, and over here we just we have the 3y. Now we have to subtract the 2x from this side to get it over here, and we end up with negative 2x plus 3y equals 12. Write in standard form an equation of the line passing through the point negative 4, 3 with a slope of negative 2. This is supposed to say integer. It says intig. I don't know what that is. Let me fix that. It's supposed to say integer. Okay. Now we want to write it first. Because we have the point and we know the slope, we're going to use the point-slope form. We have a point, we know the slope, point-slope form. And just so you don't have to look it up, it's that point-slope form. We're going to have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And here the second step then is to sub in what we know. We know that y1 is 3 right there. We know that the slope is 2, and we know that x1, which goes here, is negative 4. Now we simplify this out, and we end up with y minus 3 equals negative 2 times x plus 4. We distribute that through. We end up with So we'll end up with negative 2x minus 8. We are going, and y minus 3 on this side. We add 3 to both sides to get the y isolated on the left side. And then we end up with y equals negative 2x minus 5, because the 3 came from the 5. And then we write it like this: 2x plus y equals negative 5. Let's try the same thing again. We have a point 3 and negative 5. We have the slope of negative 3. Because we have a slope, we know we're going to use the point slope form. We're going to use integer coefficients. Again, that's just the language it's using all the way through this lesson. We have the point slope form again. It's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We plug in what we have. The negative 1 is negative, the y1, I can't talk, is negative 5. The slope is 3, and the x value is 3 right here. Then we distribute this out, so that'd be 3x and plus 9, because we had two negatives there. Now we get rid of the negative 3x on this side. We add it, but we subtract from both sides, and then you end up with, down here, y minus 3x equals 4, and I worked it out right there. So now in this example, we have a line that intersects the axes at 4 and 0 and 0 and 3. So we don't know what the slope is. So we have to, wants us to write the equation of the line in standard form, use integer intersects. So we're going to find the slope, which you've already done. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I plug in all my variables, my 3 and 0, my 4 and 0, and I end up with negative 3 over 4. And then I'm going to put it in slope-intercept form. And I made a note here, we use slope-intercept form because the second point shows the y-intercept equals 3. So because we know what the y-intercept here is, so this one right here showed us that we had a y-intercept of 3. So before we were using the point slope form because we had a point, we had a slope. Here we know right here that the y-intercept is going to cross, at least on this point, at the 3. So we're going to use the slope-intercept form. It's a little confusing. And then that formula is y equals mx plus b. And y, when I plug in all my numbers, so here's our slope here. That was m, that's negative 3 over 4x plus 3. I've substituted in. I now multiply both sides by 4 to get rid of the fraction, and I end up with, so we multiply both sides by 4. I did it right here, I scribbled it on here. You end up with, to multiply the fraction side, you end up with 4 over 1 times negative 3 over 4. That comes out to be negative 12 over 4, and then that equals negative 3. So we have negative 3x plus 12, because the 4 times 3 was 12. On this side we end up with 4y, because 4 times y is 4y. We add 3 to both sides. That gets rid of, add 3x. That leaves us with 12, and we end up with 3x plus 4y on the left side. Now we want to write in standard form an equation of the line that intersects the axes at 2 and 0 and 0 and 5. Use integer coefficients, and we find the slope because we don't know that, but we do know that the y-intercept is 5 here. Here it's 0, so here we know it crosses at 5. So we work out our equation. M equals, to find the slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is 5 minus 0. That's the y's, the 5 and the 0. And x2 is 0 and 2. We plug in our numbers. We end up with 5 over 2. And so b, or slope, equals 5. Now we come back over here, and we know that y equals mx plus b. And we know that, we already know the slope is 5. That's the b right there. So we have negative 5 over 2 here. You can hardly see my negative and my equal sign there, but it's negative 5x, which we figured out, the slope, and plus the y-intercept, which is b, which is 5, which was given. We multiply both sides by 2. So we multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the fraction. We end up with negative 5x plus 2, and then 2y over there. And in green here, I showed you how we multiplied the fraction side by 2, and we got, we end up with negative 2 over 2, which equals negative 5. Here we plug in, we have 2y on this side, equals negative 5x plus 5. We add 5x to both sides, and that gets on this side 5x plus 2y equals 5 times 2 over here. That's what I did wrong. I was looking at this trying to figure out, I didn't multiply this. This should be 10 right here. I'll do it in red. That should be 10 when we multiplied this one up here by 2. And this one right here doesn't make sense, so just ignore that one right now. And over here is our answer. We have 5x plus 2y, because we got rid of the 5x right here, and that equals 10. And now that is in the standard form up there. Just want to go over the slopes. We have positive slope is going in this direction, negative slope is going this direction, horizontal slope goes across, and an undefined slope goes straight up and down. In the horizontal line, 0 slope, nothing is crossing the x line, and when the undefined slope, it's a vertical line and nothing is crossing the y-axis there. So here's the equations that for each line. A vertical line is x equals whatever number it is, because it's just going to be that all the way across. The horizontal line, or up and down, horizontal line is y equals, and then that will be, that doesn't change. Slope, y-intercept form, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, b is the y-intercept. Point slope form is the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And standard form, which we've been talking about, is ax plus by equals c. These are all doing the same thing, but you have different bits of information for each one. So on this graph here, every point on this line right there has a y coordinate of negative 3. So that's why we would write this as saying y equals negative 3. It does not change. In this case, every point on this vertical line has a y coordinate of 2. It always stays at 2. So the equation of this line is x equals 2. There's nothing else to say about it. This is an example of x is negative 1. This is an example of y equals 1. Once again, summary of the equation of lines. We have the general form, ax plus by plus c equals 0. Vertical line, x equals a. Horizontal line, y equals b. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then a 2-point form is y equals y1, y minus y1 equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x2 times x minus x1. This is thistle that birds love. Hey, your assignment is numbers 18 through 20, 24 through 26, 33 through 35, 41, 42, 53, 61, 62, 64 to 78 even, and quiz 2. And although I said I was going to assign you the bird questions, which would be questions 57 and 58, I changed my mind, so you're not going to. But you can look at the pretty birds that love to eat thistle.